Hi, my name is Steve All Financial Group, and I'd like to welcome everybody to this week's Town Hall meeting. We really appreciate those that are joining us live, and we thank everybody that's both watching us either from the email from the company or watching us on one of the sites that it can be seen at as far as a podcast. We want to thank everybody for being here, and I am going to go ahead and start out this week's town hall with Mr. Will Meneses.
Hi, Steve. Thank you so much. Yeah, well, this week we're going to start. I want to talk about something that a client talked to us a week ago. It's about 401ks, and especially what happens whenever you had several past employers. Some of us have three, four, especially after 20, 30 years working. Sometimes you forget some of them, right? We never know. Sometimes we jump different employers and they tell us it's going to be 30 or 60 days. And we go to the next employers. We have family, we have things going on in our lives that we forget. Um, there is a lot of money sitting unclaimed in ghosted workplaces retirement plans. Guess how much? Close to $1.65 trillion, according to a company named Capitalize, that helps some people with transfer their retirement accounts. Um, just to a reminder with a lot of people that listen to us, what is a 401k? A 401k is a plan is tax advantage. It's a retirement account. It's designed by your employer to help you whenever you retire, whenever you stop working with them. Sometimes they match the percentage with contributions. Sometimes they don't. With this 401k, um, this client was asking me, what happens if I forgot about it? Well, now there is a way to find your old 401k. The first thing I always say, if you forgot all about it or you remember some employer that you said, hey, probably I left something there, the first thing to do is go back to your steps and try to contact them. Try to contact that employer, try to contact their human resources, and ask for or provide your social security number and the history of that employer. If that doesn't happen, and the employer doesn't exist anymore for some reason, there is a way for you to look for it. There are different type of places on the website that you can go and look for those 401ks or other type of retirement accounts sponsored by employers that they were forgotten in the last several years. So there are some websites, they call it the National Register of Unclaimed Retirement Benefits, that you can go and actually look for it. Department of Labor, a vending plan database that you also can go and look for them. And also Free Arisa, there is a government website that you can go and look for unclaimed property database. Um, and after that you find this 401k, what do you do with it? What is the next step? I just want to remind everybody about their options. You have your option that if you're still working, you can roll it over or move it to your new employer's plan. If it's still this company still is okay with them to keep your 401k, you can leave it with them. You also can roll it over to a retirement account, or you may cash it out, but remember, you will have a potential tax consequences. In these type of situations, that's whenever we come to the picture. If you need to roll over, if you need help to move the 401k to IRA, that's what we do. That's what we are here to help and be able to um, plan or help you plan with this forgotten 401ks and be able to help you and incorporate it in your current plans. I thought it was a great article. Thank you so much, David. Sent it to me, and I was able to talk to it in this town hall um, recording this week.
Okay, so thank you very much, Will. We really appreciate that. And now I'm going to turn the next segment over to Mr. Mel.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate it. To kind of feed a little bit off of what Will was just saying, it's what led to that particular conversation was in the past, in history, I did a lot of life insurance sales and annuity sales in the 90s and the aughts and things like that. And sometimes commission checks or payments don't come through properly, or you miss them, or they get routed to the wrong address. And there's another website called missingmoney.com. And it's very simple, missingmoney.com. And when David was looking into this, he did that on searched my past on missingmoney.com and found $750 in old commissions from Lord knows how many years ago, that I filled out a couple of documents online and gave them my social security number, my driver's license, and they're going to send me a check. Now, I will have to pay taxes on it, but it's interesting. David was asking for how much his cut is because he found the money, which makes perfect sense to me. No problem. My conversation today will feed a little bit off of what Will was talking to about planning and what we do. I'm going to go through some steps of someone that we just met with today that agreed to become a client, and the process that took, because when we talk about the difference between people who will take your money and invest it and people that do planning, and what the difference between those types of firms are, and we spend as much or more time on planning as we do on the actual investing. They have the same stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and investment opportunities that we do. And the trick is, what do you get for your money? So this process went this way. These folks came to a presentation that we did, and it might have been a educational class or a referral from another client or a dinner or something of that nature. But they decided that they would at least explore the possibility of talking to us, which is very interesting because they had already started to move their monies from their old company to a new advisor, but they weren't sure. They were still making up their mind, so they wanted to take a look at another firm. And they came and talked to us. And over a period of several months, when honestly, this was not instantaneous, this took time. The first meeting we had in office, excuse me, was, who are you? Tell us about yourselves, your work history, what your thoughts are, when you might be retiring, what's retirement going to look like? In other words, getting to know the client. And that quite honestly only took 15, 20 minutes on my part to just have a discussion with the client to get an idea of where what they were thinking. And then I turned them over to David, our paraplanner and data gatherer, and runs a lot of our software and does a lot of pre-planning for Steve and Will and myself. And he spent time with them, quite a bit of time, gathering up their information, because there's no way in the world, if you walked up to me or Steve or Will and said, hey, I have $100,000, how should I invest it? Our answer is going to be, I don't know. I don't know you. I need to know what, when, where, why, how, what's your purpose for the money before we could get around to making a legitimate recommendation for you. Matter of fact, we have to provide you with a whole ream of disclaimers these days just before we even would recommend something for you, because we have a responsibility to recommend things that we think are appropriate for you. And that's one of the steps we go through in the very first meeting in that point. We brought them back for a second meeting, and we gave them a report on our analysis, and it was extremely thorough. What their risk and reward relationship was, what their internal costs that doesn't necessarily show up on their statements, returns, how many, and they had 15 different accounts, and why were the same 7 stocks in all 15 of them? Are you really diversified, or is there a crossover where you're investing in the same thing in 15 different places? Not necessarily a bad idea, but were you aware? What kind of returns? What's the tax situation? You were talking about doing some different things. So here's how that might work. Should you be doing Roth conversions? If so, when would you hit your break even? What is the appropriate amount? Should you do it aggressively or over a period of time? So there was this entire analysis that we did for income, estate planning, all of that stuff. And none of that really had anything to do with investments as far as which one you should be in. It was analyzing their situation and reporting back to them on what we found. After that report, we did say we do have some ideas and some recommendations for you. We would like to make a third appointment because it's rather in-depth, and I want to go through everything that we would recommend and why and how it worked. So we did the third meeting and went through that entire process. Now, a lot of times people will have made up their mind by the second or third meeting or whether they want to talk to us again or not. And it's their choice. We don't charge anybody for a consultation and ever really. And in their particular case, they wanted to give it a little more thought after the third presentation, and they liked the concept, but they still had to make up their mind between us and the competitor that they were considering going with. So they booked a fourth meeting, which is a little unusual, but fine. It's a lot of money, and it's a very large account, and it's a really big decision choosing your financial advisor and the firm you want to work with. It's not a very simple thing to do. If you're making it simple, you're probably not doing your due diligence and talking and analyzing what you're going to be getting in that relationship, because it should be a relationship. It's the way we treat it anyway. And we went through again, walked through step by step, every dollar, where it went, why it went there, what the purpose was, how the different pieces put together, what we're going to do about the Roth conversion process, when we're going to do that. They're considering buying another house in Florida, and they have the wherewithal to write a check for the house if they want to, but is that the right decision? We spent 30 minutes just going over different concepts. They were looking at doing a 3-year interest-only loan just to wait until rates go down and not amortize. Well, what did that? We actually looked at what would that cost, and it would cost them about $115,000 in interest and paying no principal whatsoever during that 3-year period. Now, the house will appreciate whether you pay for it or not. Okay, if it's going to go up according to the real estate market, it'll go up whether you owe money on the house or not. So the question is, do I do a 3-year interest-only loan or do I write a check? Well, let's compare. If I keep my money and it earns enough to pay the interest on the house loan, okay, I have my money and the house will appreciate in value. Okay, if interest rates drop in the future, which is something we're considering as a strong possibility, I can refinance at the lower interest rate. So which way costs me the least money? Write the check, which means I know I own the house and it will appreciate, but I don't have any money earning money, right? If I use somebody else's money, do I do that on a short-term loan or a long-term loan? And the answer is going to be different for different people. Part of it is an emotional decision, and part of it is money and timing and when you might be selling another house. So it's not a straightforward do it this way, but it's part of the planning process of understanding what all your options are, what each one might cost you, and what the pros and cons of each. That's the point I'm trying to get across. So that's got nothing to do with whether you should invest your money in this stock or that fund or ETF or whatever. It's part of the planning process. Then we talked, they have 403Bs and 401Ks. Well, we talked about the 403B specifically because it might have some special rules that apply. It might not even be available until that person is actually retiring, which may be a couple of years from now. The 401K, we need to know what the internal cost is and the rules on how that might be rolled into an IRA account and invested as we see fit. Then we have to consider income. We have a decreasing income because he's retired and is going to drop some income in a very near future. And she's going to retire in a short period of time. So where's our income going to come from besides just the Social Security and pension? That's not enough to cover the gap. So how do we fill the gap? What's the best way to do that? If we're going to do Roth conversions, which is something that's very strongly they felt very strongly they should be doing. We did the analysis on it, and for them, it made a minimal change in their life, assuming average rate of return and current tax structures, even what might happen in 2026. But if we have a higher rate of return, our increase in taxes, Roth conversions might turn out really well. But likely for them, it's a bit of a wash. So why would they bother? Well, they have heirs, and inheriting tax-free money is probably a lot better than inheriting taxable money. And in their case, that's what their plan is. So if we're going to do the Roth conversions, then I have to look back at the taxes, how that's going to affect their income taxes. Well, also, if I raise their income taxes because I'm doing Roth conversions, their IRMA might go up, which is the cost of Medicare Part B, and more of their Social Security might become taxable. And what happens is the more you look into this and the planning process, the more complicated it gets. We find that a lot of our clients, once they understand the process that we go through and the planning, and that is ongoing, and it is not unusual for us to have quarterly meetings for a very long period of time for new clients, because it takes a while to really work through all this process. We find that they will get to a point where they're more comfortable in not having to do the day-to-day basic planning for themselves. So they will actually depend on us to do a lot of that planning and explain what their options are. They still make their own choices, of course, but it's a lot easier to hire the professional to tell you what the options are, and then you pick the one that's most comfortable for you. So I guess my point really on that is that if you're going to retire and try to enjoy your retirement, it's a lot easier to do when you're not treating retirement like a full-time job, where you have to go out and learn all this stuff and know all of the options. So hiring a professional to help you do that planning might be a very big boon to you in enjoying your retirement, assuming you hire the right firm. That's a very big part of it.
Well, thank you very much, Mel. I'm going to go at a slightly different direction, a little bit on the current events. We have market. Market has been kind of sideways. It's going to go up and down right now. We're dancing off those highs that we've been at, and the Federal Reserve is one of those questionable marks or headwinds that we try to look at, or roadblocks to retirement, however you want to call it. So those are some of the things that we do have to look at. And when the Fed met today, they said that they're going to hold rates where they're at. We might have one decrease this year. So we went from the beginning of the year where we were thinking about 6, possibly more rate cuts, to now we're going to hold steady and 1. I fall into the category with a lot of other people. I wish the Fed would just keep their mouth shut until they actually move it up or they move it down, instead of all the pre-forecast stuff that it goes out, because it does move the markets in different directions on with the interpretation of 1 or 2 words that he might say can swing the market in different directions. So to me, if you're going to move it down, move it down. Let's leave all of the other commentary off the table. But I think when you have a 24-hour news cycle, that's not what they want to hear. We want to hear news all the time, and then we get to all try to figure out how different people interpret that news. One of the questions that was brought to me is we start to look at, there's been some announcements that, like, Jeff Bezos has sold off quite a few shares. As I told the client that asked me, I'd love the opportunity to be able to sell off about $11 billion worth of stock. Wouldn't that be a problem that we would all love to have, is, the availability to sell off 11 billion or $8 billion in stock. And then there was talk about the Walton family. The Walton family has sold off some of their stock. And then we look at Mark Zuckerberg has sold off some of his stock. And a lot of people have asked and looked at me and said, Steve, if all these guys are selling, is the market getting ready to go down? And I have to look at it and say, there are times when these people do need to sell some of those positions so that they can diversify their own stock portfolio. When people start to look at it, the Walton family still owns 45% of Walmart. You know, so that family is still there. If they decide to sell off $1 billion worth of stocks, they still have plenty of that asset left. Now, if all of a sudden one of those people sold everything they had, then I might look at it and get concerned about it. I think we are dancing with stock markets that are up right now. We have a lot of uncertainty that's going on in the market right now. What is that uncertainty? Well, the presidential election, what's going on in the Ukraine, what's going on in Israel. You know, we finally, you know, the Fed, like I said, has gone from 6 to 1. So there's still a lot of uncertainty out there. The presidential election might have a little bit. I've talked about it in a couple different cases. This is probably the only presidential election where some of the uncertainty of a presidential election is not there. Why? This is the first time we have an ex-president and the current president running. Whichever one wins, most of us have an idea what Mr. Trump would do if he becomes president again. And most of us know what Mr. Biden's going to do if he becomes president again. So some of the uncertainty of the presidential election is not there this year, which it is in most times when we have presidential elections. And uncertainty is that thing that makes the market go crazy. So that's the thing that we have to look at, and that's where we focus on that plan. And that's what I love about Brad Jenkins and Market Guard. Brad Jenkins and Market Guard, we can go with different types of portfolios. We can go with a static portfolio. That static portfolio kind of puts it at an 80-20, and then we adjust it each year for drift. If we have a 80-20 or a 60-40 portfolio and the markets are up, now we got a 70-30. Let's bring it back down to that 60-40 or wherever our comfort level is. And then those of you that have a little bit more fear in the market, that say, hey, well, I want somebody to move it if it starts to go down a little bit. That's when we start to look at the target models. The target models are a little bit more defensive right now. Why would the target markets be more defensive? Because of all that uncertainty that we currently have going on in the market. And then we look at those that are more aggressive. I want an individual stock portfolio. You know, 100 stocks balanced on a quarterly basis. It is more aggressive. It does have more volatility. For some of our clients, that's not a good thing. For some clients, it is. What if I want one of those dividend stock basket things that I just want to get big dividends? We have the availability to do that. You know, Market Guard came out with the Emerging Technology Fund. It's still new. It's still new. And it is aggressive. It is going to go up and it is going to go down. And I think for some people, that's a good fit. For a lot of people, it's not. And then we look at the custom notes. Those custom notes can be very, very beneficial when we start to look at principal protection, or we look at the dual directional notes. If you haven't been talked to about those things, don't hesitate to give us a call. We still have a couple openings. I'm doing a presentation at Fleming's Restaurant in Frontenac Plaza. It's on June the 18th and the 20th, so it's very short from now. We have a few seats that are still open. If you would like to come to that event, please call the office, talk with Chris, find out if we have any availability, because like I said, it's very close. And that retirement roadblocks, what I like about it is I don't have a big script to bring to you all. I ask you, the audience, what you're concerned about. And we'll look at that entire audience and figure out what their concerns are. And we will talk about those things that you want to talk about versus it being the slideshow presentation that here are the items that I want to present to you. I really love the retirement roadblocks. If you get that opportunity, please give us a call, find out if we have seats available. I'd like to thank everybody again who's listening to this live. I would like to also thank those that are going to listen to the email that goes out later and those that are listening on podcast. The referrals that we've had have helped our business grow tremendously. And I hate to say it, we love doing business with people like our clients. That's where we have a lot of fun in this industry. So I want to thank everybody. The family at the All Financial Group just keeps growing. And I want to say thank you for being a part of our family.